Things just took a shocking turn for the Rams early on in camp as we have a very important injury update to get into, as well as a new defensive pickup looking like a star early on, as well as some other injury updates to get to. All that and more from day 3 of Rams training camp, and welcome back to another episode of Rams Digest. I'm your host, Joshua Finehirsh, and before we get into today's video, make sure to hit that subscribe button as we're still on the road to 4,000 subscribers. I know you all were wondering what would happen if we didn't hit the goal by July 24th, but what we do is we keep on going. That was just a goal. It's okay to miss out. Sometimes you guys have been showing amazing support, so thank you for that as always. And make sure to turn on the notification bell, click it down below, and click all after you do that so you get notified and do not miss whenever we post every single daily new Rams Digest video covering all things Rams. And now we have to get into our main story of today, where quarterback Matthew Stafford has an interesting injury update brought to us by Sean McVay, and we have a tag team for this story from ESPN and Rams Wire, so we're going to get into that right now. Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford, who is dealing with back soreness, will not return to practice next week as anticipated, Coach Sean McVay said Saturday. Last week, McVay said Stafford, who's 37, would be limited to start training camp, but is absolutely expected to be ready for the regular season. Even after Stafford returns to practice, the Rams intend to keep the quarterback on a modified schedule, along with a few other veteran offensive players. That is definitely a good strategy for this. Again, more so for Stafford than the other veterans, just because Stafford's coming in with this back soreness. So Stafford being on that makes sense, but for guys like Devontae, I get if he doesn't go full on every day, but I don't want him to be too limited just because he is right now healthy, knock on wood, that stays the same. For the first week of training camp, Stafford has spent most of practice away from the field working with the Rams training staff. On Saturday, he watched part of practice from the field. Saturday is today, as we do have a quote to get into real quick here from Sean McVay. On Saturday, McVay said Stafford did not experience a setback, but that it feels like the smart thing to do is a week at a time with him. I don't think we could be smart enough with somebody like Matthew, and I think it's best for him, best for our football team, and that's kind of the plan we'll have moving forward, McVay said. And yeah, I do fully agree with this sentiment. If Stafford is not recovering at the rate that the Rams medical staff thought he was going to be, I totally understand going the week-by-week approach, but this does mean that he does miss out on more reps in training camp with Puka Nacua, Davante Adams, and Terrence Ferguson as well, really trying to get that chemistry going, because right now, obviously, Garoppolo is going to be taking those reps. Garoppolo, obviously, someone who's played in big games, played in a Super Bowl with the Niners, played in multiple playoff games with the Niners, learned under Tom Brady. So he does have, as much as I'm not a fan of Garoppolo as an overall quarterback, I do understand why he's on this roster. He at least can be in a game and understand how to run a game because he's had that experience before. But this is definitely more serious than the Rams initially anticipated so far. McVay did reiterate that the goal for Stafford is to be ready for the Rams season opener against the Houston Texans, and that he doesn't have any reason for concern that Stafford will not practice Monday. That is what he said earlier on, but now it is told that he will not be returning to practice on Monday. But I do believe him in the sense that he does have no concerns over the fact that he will be ready for week 1, just because, again, we're very early on in camp. You know, if we were to do a 1 to 10, you know, how concerned am I as a Rams fan and analyst? I would say right now I'm a 3.5 to 4 out of 10 concerned that he would miss any time in week 1 or in the regular season at all, just because we're so early. If Stafford comes back next Monday instead of this Monday, I'm not concerned. But if we start getting to that August 15th mark and Stafford still has not yet done a full-on practice, then I think it's time to say, okay, we can have some concerns here and really try to see what's going on and make sure this isn't something more serious, because that will be around a month with this injury. So we'll see exactly how that pans out. Stafford, 37, he stayed healthy for the entire 2024 season after missing just 1 game with an injury in 2023. He came out of the season fully healthy, but his back soreness popped up this summer, just before camp. Jimmy Garoppolo has been leading the first-team offense in Stafford's absence, with Stetson Bennett working with the second team. And yes, this is something to know. I did a video on Stetson Bennett in a 53-man roster earlier this week, right before training camp, where Stetson Bennett was not on this roster. And now that Stafford's injury seems to be a tad bit more serious than we originally anticipated. Leave in the comments down below, what do you think this means for the Rams right now? Is this something, nothing, or everything? Right now, this is something to me, just because it is an injury for a 37-year-old. It is his back. You know, your back, that's how you can turn As a quarterback, we all know Eli Manning on ManningCast talks about how his hips don't lie like Shakira, but he also says it's very important to have your back in motion with that so you can have a nice full throwing motion. But for Stafford, I do agree with this approach, as I already said, that it is important for him to just get into this regular season being as fully healthy as he can be. I get he's 37. It's pretty much impossible for a 37-year-old pro athlete to be fully healthy with zero bumps and bruises, but let's get this injury 95% under control before you head back into a regular season game action. So I'm not too concerned just yet, but leave your concern level down below in the comments. And this is big for Bennett, as I said, because this can prove him to be a very valuable asset for this Rams team if Stafford's back needs to be managed throughout the first couple weeks of this upcoming season. And now we have another story from a new defensive acquisition being a key piece to the Rams early on in a training camp. And this story is brought to us by Rams Wire, and that player is new linebacker pickup from the Falcons, Nate Landman. With the additions of Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua, and Coleman Shelton in free agency, it was easy to overlook the signing of Nate Landman. The Los Angeles Rams inked him into a one-year deal worth $1.1 million, and with it being such a modest contract for the former Atlanta Falcons starting linebacker, he wasn't exactly a splashy move. Instead, Landman might just be making a splash on the field. Yeah, $1.1 million for a potential starter for you, even a rotational piece? Such great value in the NFL. This is a great contract for the Rams regardless of how much Landman plays throughout this entire season. During Friday's training camp practice at Little and Marymount University, the Rams only ran a jog-through. Players weren't in pads or helmets, taking it easy on day 3 of camp. Landman, however, was wearing a helmet. Why is that? He appeared to be wearing the green dot as a signal caller on defense. The speaker in his helmet allows him to hear the plays from defensive coordinator Chris Shula and relay them to his teammates on the field, an incredibly important role on every team's defense. Now this isn't everything if we're doing something nothing for everything, because Quentin Lake was this guy last year, and it looked like Omar Spates had the inside track to have a chance to be this guy based on how the way he ended his season last year. But seeing Nate Landman do this is a great leadership role, leadership place for him on this defense. This is definitely not something I expected as a Rams fan, and in a good way, because Nate Landman was a pretty decent player over there with the Falcons last year, and we know just how well Raheem Morris really tries to get the most out of his guys. We saw that while he was the Rams defensive coordinator. We love Raheem Morris over here. Like this video right now for Raheem Morris. Did a lot of good things for this Rams team. Helped us win a Super Bowl. But now for Nate Landman's sake, this is awesome to see for him as he looks to have a big role on this defense. Last year it was Quentin Lake, as I said, wearing the green dot and playing every snap. This year, it might just be Landman. If he does wind up being the signal caller, he'll almost never come off the field when the Rams are on defense. Yeah, that's the other thing. If you're the signal caller, you're never off the field because you have to have that speaker in at all times, and you're such an important piece. If you get hurt, again, you can just go back to Quentin Lake, because Quentin Lake did this last year, so he does have the experience of wearing the green dot. So I do think it's good for Landman to have this. I don't know if this is just to have he's the backup signal caller to Lake if something were to happen to Quentin Lake, or if the Rams are really trying to make a switch to have Landman be a signal caller, or you have both of them wearing the signal callers in the same game. Not at the same time, but through different plays. I don't know if that's legal or not in the NFL. Comment that down below because I don't know for sure. But if it is, this could be huge, having two vital signal callers on defense. You can see from this video by Alan Sales that Landman is calling out the play to the rest of the first team defense. And that's with Quentin Lake and Omar Spates on the field too. Yeah. Again, Omar Spates was the guy who I thought at linebacker was going to be this LB1, the leader of the group. But it looks like Landman is taking that step right now, which is really, really awesome to see. And also, Nate Landman did have a forced fumble in today's practice as well. All those videos, I'm sure, are up on Rams social media. I can't play those for you here, but if you want to see those for yourself, just type in Nate Landman fumble on Twitter, and it will show up. It was a really nice punch-out, but it was a beautiful punch-out. And that's something the Rams could really use, generating more takeaways. Because as great as the pass rush is, outside of the Kinchins and Jalen McCullough interceptions, the Rams definitely had some trouble generating turnovers. And if Landman and these other linebackers are going to be punching the ball out like that, it's going to be so key for this defense. During his press conference on Thursday, Sean McVay mentioned Landman and Kobe Turner communicating with the front seven, an indication that Landman will keep running with the first-team defense. Brock Vieira of Sports Illustrated noticed Landman standing out consistently on day 1 of camp, viewing him as a difference maker, as we have that quote for you right now. Landman continually snuffed out the run and play action, making critical decisions that prohibited the ball from being thrown downfield. Landman appears to be the difference maker that will take this defense from explosive to dominating. Yeah, that is definitely something to keep an eye on here if you are a Rams fan, because this linebacker room coming in, it's an open competition right now, as we know, heading into camp with, you got Landman, Spates, Chris Paul Jr., Troy Reeder, Sean Dolak. Really, to me, the competition is between Dolak and Reeder, but it's also a competition to see who's going to wear that green dot. If it's not Quentin Lake, who's it going to be? I thought it would be Spates, but right now it looks like it's going to be Nate Landman, which would be so key for this Rams defense if Landman can beat this guy, because he's reading the offense so well. He should be the leader of this linebacker room right now. And everything that's been said about Landman from coaches and players has been positive this offseason. A clear sign he's made a strong first impression in LA. It helps that he played for Jimmy Lake in Atlanta last season when Lake was the defensive coordinator there. Yeah, as I said, the LA to Atlanta ties keep on continuing, and that is definitely the case here. And that does help with Jimmy Lake being now a coach here in LA. He has that familiarity. Now with Chris Shula, they're working well together. I'm loving this. Like this video right now for the Rams defense. I think the Rams defense definitely has the shot to surprise people, because it's definitely going to be shocking to see just how good this team can be. Lake is back in Los Angeles this year, so Landman has familiarity with this defense. Nate Landman is just a guy. He comes from a similar language in Atlanta, and Jimmy Lake was with him, who's with us now. So there's a lot of familiarity, and that's from Chris Shula. In space, Troy Reeder and Chris Paul Jr. are not out of the running yet, but it looks like Landman has the lead early in camp to be LB1. I did think the starters were going to be Spates and Landman coming into camp, and Chris Paul Jr. kind of being that third do-it-all type of linebacker coming in. So Landman doing this is key for the defense. This is the Rams X factor on defense, and I think this is huge for this Rams team if Landman can have this big of an impact. Comment that down below right now what you think the impact of Nate Landman is going to be, because based on what we're seeing right now, that $1.1 million contract has some huge early returns here in training camp. And now for our last story of today's video, we have some more injury updates to get into. We had two more defensive players that actually missed practice today, with Sean McVay giving us an update on both of them, brought to us by Rams Wire. Sean McVay told reporters after practice that rookie Chris Paul Jr. and Ahkello Witherspoon in the corner are dealing with calf injuries and were sidelined as a result. McVay didn't speak to the severity of either injury, but he did say Witherspoon is considered day-to-day, as we also have the quote for you on that right now. Yeah, we're just being smart with Pooh. He's got a little bit of a calf. Ahkello is feeling a little something, so he'll be day-to-day, McVay said. And that's exactly what you have to do with these types of injuries, especially with calf injuries. I don't think this is the same injury as what Halliburton had in the NBA Finals and what Durant had with the Warriors all those years ago, but if it is, you got to take a couple weeks off with these types of injuries. With Ahkello being day-to-day, I don't think he has that type of injury at all. Again, we don't know the severity. Maybe we'll find out more tomorrow, so stay tuned for tomorrow's video so that you don't miss that. But with these injuries, this is a nothing for me. If both guys seem like they're going to be okay for the regular season, it's early on in camp. Take off a couple days you need to take off to get right. It's not worth pushing through right here, right now. So I definitely agree with this approach, as we have a little more analysis to get into on these as well. Paul is vying for snaps at inside linebacker, and with it being a wide open competition, every day of practice that he misses puts him at a disadvantage. Omar Spates and Nate Landman are the front runners to be the starting linebackers. Again, I agree. I think regardless of what Chris Paul Jr. does this camp, those two should be the starting linebackers. But for Chris Paul Jr., he's going to get playing time. I already think he's better than Troy Reeder and Sean Dolak, so I don't see him missing out on getting any playing time whatsoever, but I do agree that he is missing valid and valuable reps as a rookie to make sure he is up to speed with this defense, so we can make a positive impact as a rookie. And we have a little more analysis to get into as well. Witherspoon is projected to be one of the Rams' primary cornerbacks alongside Darius Williams and Kobe Durant, as well as Quentin Lake in the slot. He's a veteran with a ton of experience, but hopefully he gets back sooner rather than later. Oh, for sure. Yeah, he does need to get back sooner rather than later, because again, there's a cornerback battle. Emmanuel Forbes was taking some first-team reps. He forced an incompletion to Devontae Adams. So, again, I heard Maurice Jones-Drew on NFL Network today talking about how Emmanuel Forbes was actually put on some weight in the weight room as well, because the big thing for him was he was tall, but he was around 170 pounds. So I don't know exactly what his weight is. Maybe we'll get an insight into that as well. But if he's up to that 190-ish mark, he could definitely be a big force in the cornerback position. Witherspoon will make this team. He'll play because he's someone who was one of the Rams' better corners last year and knows this system very, very well, but it is very important that he is healthy. And that is all for this episode of Rams Digest. Thank you very much for watching. As always, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that sub button. We are on the road to 4K right now, and turn on the notification bell. Click all once you do so you get notified and do not miss any daily new Rams Digest videos whenever we upload. Like this video for the start of training camp. The Rams have now had 2 open practices with more to come, so like this video for that, as we're marching closer to this regular season. 50 more days officially now until the season opener. Leave in the comments down below your thoughts on the surprising news regarding the Matthew Stafford injury and what this means for Stetson Bennett and the Rams, well, and Stafford overall. Leave in the comments below your thoughts on Nate Landman's dominating start to training camp, as well as the other injuries and what you think those mean for the Rams going forward, Chris Paul Jr. and Kyren Witherspoon. I've been your host, Joshua Finehirsh. Thank you very much for watching another episode of Rams Digest. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you soon for another one, and have a great rest of your day.